Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guests from The Princess and the Frog, courtesy of Disney, the directors, John Musker and Clements. The Princess, Anika, Noni, all-star animator, Andreas, Deja, and the producer, Vecho. It'll be the usual formula, ladies and gents. For those of you who are new to this, and won't be many of you who are new to this, I'll ask our guests each a question, and then in the time that's left, take as many questions from your good selves as I can. It's only water, John. Okay. Okay. If I can start with you, John, the idea for developing one of the most famous stories from the Brothers Grimm has been floating around in the ether for quite some time. Perhaps you can tell us how long and why it's taken so long for it to...
Surprisingly enough, yes. At the Disney studio, the story, the Grimm's fairy tale, The Frog Prince, has been in development, I would say, about 18 years. Different versions of it, going back to the time practically of Beauty and the Beast. Eric Goldberg developed a version that was sort of a Shrek-like version, and Rob Minkoff worked on a version, the director of Lion King, and these versions may have only gotten to the point of just being little treatments or a couple of page things or a few drawings. They never really quite got off the ground. Coincidentally enough, Pixar also developed ideas based on The Frog Prince for a CG animated film. And the first one that was really pitched there was set in Gangland, Chicago in the 1930s. And I think John Lasseter, when he saw an opportunity to actually set the story in New Orleans rather than in Chicago, because New Orleans is one of his favorite cities in the world, favorite city in America. And I think he thought the proximity of the bayou, it was a natural with frogs. So the Pixar version moved to New Orleans. Neither the Pixar version nor the Disney version ever quite got off the ground for whatever reasons. And when we came back to the studio about 3.5 years ago, Ron and I, John Lasseter, who was newly instituted as the head of Disney Animation, Disney having bought Pixar about 4 years ago, he said, can you take a look at this idea and just see what you think of it? And so we read all those Disney versions, we read all the Pixar versions, and we kind of came up with our own variation, which was, we had the idea of it having an African-American lead, and ultimately played by Anika here, to tell this, and we like the idea of telling the story in New Orleans. We like the idea of it being hand-drawn and being a musical. We suggested to John Lasseter that Randy Newman do the music for it, and he assented to all those ideas.
Ron, if we could move on with your good self and develop more the idea of the music. I mean, I think no one would have predicted that you could have had Disney coupling with Dr. John in a movie. So how did he get involved? Was he a friend of Randy's, or was there more to it than that? And how did you go about deciding on the music? Did you do tons of research into Cajun music, Zydeco, and that sort of stuff?
Well, after we pitched the idea to John Lasseter, and he really liked all the ideas in terms of being hand-drawn with an African-American heroine set in 1920s New Orleans and being a musical. They said before you do anything else, you need to go down and visit the city and really get a sense of the city. So we went to the Jazz Fest. That was May of 2006 that they have every year. And we did other research, but in terms of the music, the Jazz Fest is a great sort of experience where they have like a gospel tent and a Zydeco stage, and over here is Dixieland, and we really got a sense of all the different kinds of music. We knew Randy Newman right away. We had pitched Randy Newman doing the music because he actually spent his boyhoods in New Orleans, and actually in terms of Dr. John, he has worked with Dr. John. They performed together.
Actually, at the Tower of London, they performed together.
Not in it.
Not in it. I think they're still mostly here.
Randy, the first song Randy wrote for the movie was a song called Down in New Orleans, and that sort of is just all about the city and bringing you into the world of the movie. And we actually thought Dr. John, that it would be great for Dr. John to sing that song. And one of the big thrills of the movie was that song was recorded in New Orleans, and just being down there in the city with Dr. John and Randy Newman together. A lot of musicians from New Orleans were there sort of doing the music, and that was a very special day just to kind of be a part of that.
Thank you. Anika, I can understand how you got yourself ready for your knockout performance as a dream girl, but how do you prepare to play an iconic Disney princess?
Well, I think you sort of prepare in the same way. You know, I grew up on Disney, so I know I sort of have Disney in my veins before I even got to the studios. But it's the same type of preparation. You find out who this character is. I did a lot of calling around in New Orleans to listen to people's voices in different areas without telling them why. I just wanted to hear the way they sounded to figure out what I wanted her to sound like. I read up on New Orleans, the history of New Orleans, and I listened to a lot of music from the jazz era, like the era when it was being created and made. But I'd also been to New Orleans before. So those are the things that I did in preparation for her character. Otherwise, I read the script and I felt like I knew this girl. I was saying that I feel like Ron and John have a teenage girl in their breast pocket somewhere. she just pops out to inform them every now and then. It was very clear to me who she was. Her journey was so similar to my own journey in life. Being an actor, being someone who is from a small town and choosing this profession, there were so many naysayers around me telling me it was impossible, one in this many people, don't you want something to fall back on? And no, I didn't want something to fall back on. This is what I wanted to do, and I did it. I worked at it and I made it happen. So at some point, and it didn't hit me immediately, but at some point during our journey of creating Tiana and the movie, it hit me that this is also my journey. This is my story, even though it's not the same time, it's not this exact same situation. So, you know, on that end of it, the preparation was life. That doesn't always happen. It doesn't often happen. But I was really lucky with this.
Thank you. Andreas, as has been mentioned, this is a return to the art of the hand-drawn animation field. Was that a dream come true for you when new life was breathed into hand-drawing animation? And had you considered what you might have done if hand-drawing was consigned to the cinematic dustbin?
Well, it was a dream come true for me the second time around. My first time was to get a job at Disney in the first place in 1980. And then to see it go away was, I would say, very sad for a lot of us, not just myself, but my colleagues who really, I mean, these are the folks who did Lion King, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast, and not to be able to express ourselves like this anymore through pencil and paper and that magical medium of hand-drawn animation was sad. Some of my friends trained in computer animation because there was nothing else going on. I was a little stubborn and stayed with drawing and found sort of odd jobs at Disney that sort of required a little bit of drawing, like a train sequence, or I helped our studio down in Sydney who was doing a sequel to Bambi, and that still involved hand drawing, so I helped them out for 6 months, and then all of a sudden there was a time where there was nothing left to be drawn anymore at Disney. And it was at that time, though, when we had a management change and John Lasseter came back, and luckily he shared our sentiment toward hand-drawn animation and brought it back.
Excellent, thank you. Peter, you've got the benefit, I suppose, of at home having two critics that you can turn to and ask if you're following the right direction or if your instincts are spot on, because you've got 12-year-old twins. So how useful is it to have people who are the perfect age for films like this, to be able to discuss with them what you're doing, let them have an early first say?
First of all, let me just say, having twins probably prepared me for being a producer better than anything. Schedules, budgets, crises, drama. I think I learned a lot over the 12 years. You know, unbeknownst to me, early on, my daughter actually read the script. I had brought the script home, an early version of the script, and brought it home. My daughter read it, and I didn't even know she had read it, and came up to me and said, "Dad, you really got to make this film." So I started off on